Dear members of the press, now we'll follow the press conference of the Prime Minister of the Government of North Macedonia and the Ambassador of the European Union to our country, Mr. David Geer. First, we'll hear from the Prime Minister. Thank you. Dear Ambassador Geer, dear attendees, dear members of the press, dear citizens. Thank you for attending today's event and for following the event that we organized with the delegation of the EU to this country. I would like to thank in the very beginning to the EU for the financial support of 80 million euros for dealing with the energy crisis. Today's event is important from three aspects. First, our requests to the European Union in terms of greatest energy and economic crisis remembered after the Second World War are being realized. The President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, during her visit to our country in the month of October last year, said that the European Union will stand by North Macedonia, and together we will overcome the challenges of the biggest global economic and energy crisis caused by the military aggression on Ukraine. When we signed the Frontex agreement and announced a grant of 80 million euros budget support for mitigating the crisis, we said that this grant will support the citizens for their electricity bills, will support the small and medium companies for keeping up the continuity of the business, as well as will support the investments of the country in the energy transition to renewable energy sources and energy efficiency. I'm also especially pleased with the fact that these funds are already available and a part of the anti-package measures in the amount of over 760 million euros. According to the data of the World Bank, this is the highest budget support in the region, and for 2023, 225 million euros are provided in the budget in a special program for dealing with the energy crisis. The measures are already providing results. We increased the production of electricity in domestic capacities. We secured the price stability, and this directly influences the protection of the standard of living of the citizens, but also in the stabilization of the inflation. We turned crisis into opportunity. ASAM in January and February of this year increased production by 50% compared to the same period last year and fully fulfills the production plan. The increased production of electricity in the state power plants enabled SMA sales to significantly reduce electricity purchases from the stock exchanges. At the same time, we undertook measures that provide cheap electricity for schools, for utility companies, and also for the food industry. The reduction of the price of electricity by 20% for 70,000 companies that are on the regulated market and keeping the prices for the households at the same level only confirms the timely measures. Today we have electricity, heating, and no restrictions. The plan produces results. This is the true concern for the citizens and for the companies. This is the greatest confirmation for the right policies of the government, as well as it shows those critics who forecasted the darkest scenarios for our country. If ESMA continues the realization of increased production, this will be an argument plus, which will enable the Energy Regulatory Commission to make decisions in the interest of the citizens. We are doing everything in our power, and that is to implement the plan for increased production so that the price is stable and the citizens use cheap tariff. The analysis of the Regulatory Commission will show whether it will have extended usage intervals during the day. Our priority is also energy transition and energy independence, and our country is a regional leader in energy transition with an enormous potential to become a green energy hub. The last data show that there is an increase in the interest of investments in renewable sources. As of January 1st, 2022, by 28th of February this year, there are new solar power plants in the country with a total installed capacities of 181.2 megawatts from renewable sources that can meet the needs of 72,500 households with an average consumption of electricity. That is, with these capacities from renewable energy sources, the needs of households from 8 cities can be met. Ohrid, Titovo, Kratovo, Kruševo, Krivo Palanka, Sveti Nikole, Resen, and Duran. In the first 2 months of the year, There are 88 new photovoltaic power plants with a capacity of 29 megawatts for the production of electricity in the country, which have acquired operating licenses. All these policies and measures that were timely undertaken are for the citizens, for the companies, and for the country. This crisis showed that unity is important for tackling the most difficult times, and that is why this financial assistance from the European Union, despite the fact that it is the largest in the region, it is more than financial support. It is a sign of alliance and friendship between North Macedonia and the European Union. That is why I would like to reiterate my appreciation for the support that we receive from the EU, for the 80 million euros that we received now. And I would like to mention the 100 million euros microfinancial assistance that we have from the European Union, as well as the support of the investments in the country regarding especially the energy and other infrastructural projects through the European Bank for Development, the European Investment Bank, as well as other funds of the European Union. Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you, Prime Minister. Now we'll hear from Ambassador Geer. You may take the floor.
Deputy Prime Minister, Ministers, dear media representatives, and most of all, dear citizens of North Macedonia, it is my great pleasure to be able to address you today. Today, the European Union is keeping its promises and confirming its fundamental values. The EU is proving once again that it is here for the citizens of North Macedonia. Back last October, the President of the European Commission promised 80 million euros to help citizens struggling to cope with rising energy prices, a consequence of Russia's aggression against Ukraine. It was a gesture of solidarity between the EU and future member states, because we care, because we are in this together, because we are at our best when tackling common challenges together. Now we are delivering disbursements worth 80 million euros to the state budget. For the many beneficiaries of this support, this figure is not abstract. It consists of practical financial support, which makes the difference between making ends meet and not coping at all. So who are these people? Our contributions include the most vulnerable, an estimated 172,000 citizens, the elderly, disabled persons and their families, single parents and unemployed persons who receive social protection, 4,200 vulnerable households, 47,000 vulnerable citizens, 79,000 small consumers, 474 schools, 67 public utility companies providing water as well as wastewater treatment plants, companies providing food, and 109 healthcare institutions. These are not dry figures, but people, citizens who deserve help, companies and institutions on which we all rely, staffed by people who serve the interests of all of us. Our support is backed by an action plan designed to ensure the implementation of sustainable reforms in the energy sector. This must be implemented in full. But these 80 million euros are only part of a broader 1 billion euro package that the European Union has prepared for the whole of the Western Balkans. Much of this money has been made available to support investments in the green energy transition, a transition which is becoming increasingly urgent. This comes on top of the 250 million euros that the EU and its partners have already provided for the energy sector of this country. Not figures, people. Not abstract commitments, but practical support to provide protection now and help build a greener, sustainable energy future together, here in North Macedonia, in the Western Balkans, and the European Union. Because energy connects us, and because we know that we are a family, and because we are confident that our collective future lies together in the European Union. Vi благодарам.
Thank you. Now we will continue with the press conference. We'll hear from the journalists. 4 questions, 2 for the ambassador and 2 for the president of the government. Kate, Kanal Pit. First, to the Prime Minister. Do you have concise directions? How will the funds be used? How much for the citizens? How much for the companies? Are these new measures? These funds are budget support for our country. They will be part of the budget regarding the anti-crisis measures for dealing with the consequences from the energy and economic crisis. And having in mind that in the budget we already foresee 225,000 euros for tackling the energy crisis, these are part of these funds that will be used for the measures undertaken in the course of this year, because they were announced at the end of last year and they were budgeted in this year. TV21 for the ambassador. For the ambassador Geer. Ambassador, what is the availability of the pre-accession funds and how much funds has North Macedonia received and in which sectors mainly? Thank you.
Massive question. Thank you for it. Look, to give you a ballpark sense of the kind of support that we're providing, it's about 100 million euros per year in one way or another. In addition to that, you have exceptional support, such as the up to 100 million for the macro-financial assistance, which the Prime Minister has referred to, and the 80 million energy package. So if you take as a ballpark about 100 million, covering many sectors. And that support is going to increase over time because, as you know, the accession process is about carrying out reforms across a very wide range of areas, bringing the country in line with the laws and standards of the European Union, from agriculture to trade, from customs to rule of law. If you take an example such as the environment, which is a notoriously expensive area, you will see that our investments will increase over time as the country comes closer to the European Union, so that when it joins the European Union, it has already done most of the hard lifting which is necessary to be a full member of the European Union and enjoy the benefits of that.
Канал 5 само на дополнуване на прашањето за
Channel 5, Canal 5 additional question to the ambassador. This is beyond the topic. Since the American ambassador announced that 1 to 2 names from this country will be on the blacklist in America, whether Brussels has any insight for high corruption in the country? Do you have some knowledge about people who could be on the blacklist from Brussels?
The issue of corruption, as you know, is a very important issue which goes to the heart of the accession process. It's so important that we include it in something called the fundamentals, which means that we examine the fight against corruption and we try to help in that fight at every single stage of the process. And that is not about necessarily identifying individuals, that's about changing the systems so that the institutions are there able to combat corruption and that everyone knows that there is no tolerance for corruption. That is a long-term process in which we are very much engaged. We have an important role to play. Obviously, the government has the leading role, but there are many others as well, including civil society, business, and across the political parties. But no, I don't have any special insights into individuals who could or could not be targeted by sanctions. Thank you.
Prime Minister, you announced that you will create working groups in the Ministry of Justice in the process of amendments to the constitutions in order to include the Bulgarian minority in the constitution. Whether these working groups, how will they be composed? NGOs, experts, political parties? We see that the opposition is against the involvement in this process. Are you going to have an individual approach to the members of the parliament, to the political parties? How will this whole process develop? The next phase, yes, it's the creation of a working expert group that, of course, will be coordinated by the Ministry of Justice with the purpose of preparation of the amendments, because at the moment we are speaking of constitutional changes, but none of the citizens has seen these constitutional amendments. So the first phase is for them to be written by experts. We're not speaking only of introducing the Bulgarians to the constitution, but also the other ethnic communities who want to be part of our constitution that already has certain communities involved. This working group will include experts in constitutional laws, and we will also invite representatives and experts from the political parties. This also includes the opposition. I consider that the opposition should accept this, although the past shows that they only want to block the parliament. But I think that this time they should be part of this. After the amendments are composed, they will be placed for expanded discussion in the society, the academic community, the business community, then the NGOs, the media, the citizens, so that everyone can give their opinion. Then we have the next phase, parliamentary discussion. This includes several steps, two-thirds majority and absolute majority, with the purpose of constitutional amendments alpha. Okay, and CETA also. Prime Minister, since there is an increased interest for investments in renewable energy sources, can you tell us, are you pleased with the business of your wife, and what would you recommend the people who want to invest in such business pursuant to the law? Well, you see that the renewable energy sources are something that this government initiates and stimulates, and the results are 182 megawatts installed capacity from 1st of January last year to 28th of February this year. Regarding your question, and I answered you last time, I've answered this question in the assembly, in this press center, and on other press conferences. And I would ask the leader of the opposition. No, I'm answering your question. I would recommend the leader of the opposition that every time he will miss something, as he missed in January and February, that there will be new parliamentary majority, and it turned out not to be true, then he has guerrilla actions, campaigns that are not justified, because my family and everything that my family has is reported in all registers in the country, in the Public Revenue Office, the Central Registry, and everything can be inspected. Yes, renewable sources are the future, not only in our country, but throughout the world. And we have a strategy led by the institutions, mostly the Ministry of Economy. The Academy of Science was also part of this, and we are one of the leaders in the region in renewable energy sources. This is already confirmed because we have installed capacities that can replace the one whole block of Riga Bitola at this moment. CETA, briefly. But you should encourage the citizens, so you should say whether you're satisfied. I answered your question. Since we have a new law on school books, are you thinking about making the school books free of charge next year? You will ask this question the Minister of Education and Science, because this is under their authority. It includes preparation of physical school books, but it also includes budget implications regarding the printing and distribution of the school books, and he can answer the citizens for this question. Thank you for the attention.